In the dim, fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London, where the gas lamps flickered like dying stars and the air reeked of coal smoke and despair, a boy named Elias Thorne navigated the labyrinth of alleyways with the stealth of a shadow. At just 12 years old, Elias had already seen more darkness than most men twice his age. Orphaned at birth, he had been raised by the streets, surviving on scraps stolen from market stalls and the occasional coin tossed by a pitying passerby. But tonight, his luck was about to run out in a way that would etch his name into the annals of infamy. The year was 1842, a time when the British Empire's justice system was as merciless as the winter winds whipping through the Thames. Crime was rampant, and the courts doled out punishments with an iron fist. Hangings were public spectacles, drawing crowds eager for the macabre thrill of watching a soul depart the world. Elias, small and wiry with a mop of unruly brown hair and eyes that held the cunning of a fox, had turned to thievery not out of malice, but necessity. His latest mark was the home of Sir Reginald Hargrove, a wealthy merchant whose opulent townhouse on Baker Street overflowed with silverware and jewels. Elias slipped through a cracked window, his bare feet silent on the polished floors. He pocketed a silver locket, a handful of coins, and was about to flee when the creak of a door stopped him cold. Sir Hargrove, a burly man with a mustache like a broom, stood there with a pistol in hand. "Thief!" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the house. The boy froze, then bolted, but not before Hargrove fired a shot that grazed his arm. Servants gave chase, and within minutes, Elias was cornered in the street, blood trickling down his sleeve. The constables arrived, their truncheons at the ready, and dragged him to Newgate Prison, that infamous bastion of misery where the condemned awaited their fate. In the cold cell, chained to the wall, Elias pondered his life. He had heard tales of boys his age hanged for lesser crimes, pickpocketing, arson, even poaching. The law made no distinction for youth. If you were deemed capable of understanding right from wrong, you were treated as an adult. Elias, with his sharp mind, knew he was doomed. The trial was swift. The courtroom, packed with spectators, buzzed with anticipation. The judge, a stern figure in a powdered wig, peered down at the boy. "Elias Thorne, you stand accused of burglary with intent to harm. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Lord," Elias whispered, his voice barely audible. Witnesses testified, Hargrove dramatically recounting the intrusion. The jury, all men of property, deliberated for mere minutes. "Guilty," the foreman announced. The judge donned the black cap, a symbol of death. "Elias Thorne, for your crimes, you are sentenced to be hanged by the neck until dead. May God have mercy on your soul." At 12, Elias became one of the youngest ever sentenced to death in England. But his story was just beginning, for in the shadows of Newgate, whispers of escape and rebellion stirred. Across the ocean, in the sweltering heat of colonial America, another young soul faced the noose. It was 1776, the year of revolution, but for 14-year-old Abigail Reed, the fight for freedom was personal and deadly. Abigail lived in Boston, where tensions between colonists and British redcoats boiled over like a pot left too long on the fire. Abigail's father was a printer, publishing pamphlets that decried King George's tyranny. One night, during a raid, redcoats stormed their home. In the chaos, Abigail grabbed her father's musket and fired, killing a soldier. She was arrested on the spot, labeled a traitor and murderer. The military court was unforgiving. "You have taken a life in rebellion against the crown," the officer intoned. "The penalty is death." Abigail, with her fiery red hair and defiant green eyes, stood tall. "I fought for my home," she said, her voice steady. Sentenced at 14, she was to be hanged at dawn. But as the revolutionaries gathered strength, a daring rescue was planned. Paul Revere himself, legend has it, led the charge to free her, turning her from condemned to hero. Yet, history records her as one of the youngest females sentenced to death during the war, her story a blend of fact and folklore that inspired ballads and tales for generations. Fast forward to 1912, in the arid expanses of the American Southwest. The town of Tombstone, Arizona, still echoed with the ghosts of the OK Corral shootout. Here, 16-year-old Juan Martinez found himself entangled in a web of vengeance and lawlessness. Juan was a ranch hand, working for the wealthy Caldwell family. When Mr. Caldwell accused him of stealing cattle, a crime punishable by hanging in those lawless days, Juan protested his innocence. But evidence was planted, and a kangaroo court convened. The judge, a corrupt ally of Caldwell, banged his gavel. Juan Martinez, you are guilty of rustling. Sentence, death by hanging. At 16, Juan was marched to the gallows, the scorching sun beating down. The crowd jeered, but as the trapdoor opened, a sandstorm whipped up, obscuring the execution. In the confusion, Juan's friends cut him down and spirited him away to Mexico. His escape became legend, but his sentence marked him as one of the youngest in the Wild West era. The Great War, 1917. In the trenches of France, 17-year-old Private Thomas Wilkins, a British soldier, faced a firing squad. Accused of desertion after fleeing a suicidal charge, Thomas was court-martialed. "You ran from your duty," the officer said. "The sentence is death." Thomas, barely out of boyhood, wrote a final letter to his mother, "I was scared, Mum. Forgive me." Shot at dawn, he became one of the youngest executed for cowardice in World War I, his name later pardoned in a wave of post-war mercy. Jumping to 1944, during World War II, in Nazi-occupied Poland, 15-year-old Anna Kowalski, a Jewish girl in the resistance, was captured planting a bomb. The Gestapo tribunal was brutal. "Sabotage against the Reich," the commander snarled. Death. Anna faced the wall, her young life ended by bullets, one of the youngest sentenced in the Holocaust's horrors. 1950s America, the McCarthy era. 18-year-old Robert Hayes, accused of espionage in a fit of paranoia, was sentenced to the electric chair. "Traitor," the judge declared. Robert's appeals failed, and he fried at 18, the youngest in the Cold War witch hunts. 1963, Mississippi. 17-year-old Jamal Wright, a black teen, was framed for murdering a white store owner during riots. The all-white jury convicted him quickly. "Death," the judge said. Jamal's case drew national attention, leading to his commutation, but he remained one of the youngest sentenced in the civil rights era. 1980s Colombia. 16-year-old Maria Lopez, caught in a cartel crossfire, was sentenced for assassination. Guilty, the court ruled. Hanged in prison, she was the youngest in the drug wars. 2005, Iran. 15-year-old Aisha Rahman, accused of adultery under Sharia law, faced stoning. The international outcry saved her, but her sentence stood as a stark reminder. 2025, a dystopian future. 14-year-old Alex Chen, a hacker who exposed government secrets, is sentenced to death for treason. In a world where youth is no barrier to capital punishment, Alex's story unfolds in real time, broadcasted globally.